And this one is a sad one. I hate reporting stuff like this. But what are you going to do, man? That's what these carriers do. Deutsche Telekom has axed 4,000 U.S. jobs this year despite the T-Mobile pledge. If you guys remember, T-Mobile pledged to not get rid of jobs. In fact, they pledged to create jobs. Remember what they said? They said that they were going to be jobs positive from day one. They've done nothing but lay people off. Okay, so ever since the T-Mobile Sprint merger, the dark days of the pandemic, managers must have been regretting the claim that a beefed-up company would have more employees than the two constituents added together. It came from none other than Timotheus Hodges, boss of German parent Deutsche Telekom, and clearly implied a net gain in headcount post-merger. This, quote, jobs positive from day one pledge was made to overcome political opposition to the controversial deal, seen as bad for consumers and workers alike. I said it then, I'll say it now. A supercharged T-Mobile was going to be good for the consumer. It was never going to be good for the employee. It was always going to be good for the American consumer. It was never going to be good for the American worker, right? Because what we had before was two very strong, large operators, Verizon and AT&T. And then we had these two small, competitors in T-Mobile and Sprint. Sprint was dying. They couldn't get anything right. The parent company, SoftBank, stopped investing money in them. T-Mobile needed an infusion of cash. They needed assets. They had the know-how. They had the will to compete. They had the formula. They had the marketing. They just needed the assets, which is what Sprint gave them. We had two big companies taking all the share. When T-Mobile got Sprint, it made them a legitimate big player, and they've proven that. So now instead of too big, too little, in which the two little ones don't even make the big ones move, now we got three big ones, and they all make all three of them move. So in my opinion, the consumer has won in the T-Mobile and Sprint merger, but the American employee, the worker, has lost. We saw thousands of engineers laid off just several weeks ago. We've seen retail associates laid off. People have been told to reapply and, try. We heard Mike Sievert say everybody's got a seat at the table and blah, blah, blah. Well, the truth is, yes, T-Mobile is now the supercharged version of the company, but they're also the company that lays people off, thousands at a time. All right, so let's look at the numbers here. This turned out to be total BS, as an American might say. As first reported by Light Reading, T-Mobile had 52,000 full and part-time employees on payroll in 2018, at the time that the deal was announced. Sprint had 28,500. By the end of 2020, after the transaction had gone through, it showed that there were 75,000 employees at the new T-Mobile. Across the two companies, 5,500 jobs had been removed since the merger plans were revealed. It says between 2020 and 2021, there was no change in the figure. So that means they're job negative by 5,500 people. And then it said with 71,000 U.S. positions, that's 209 fewer than it recorded 1 year prior. Okay, so we got more losses. Then we found out today, at the time of this, I think this was yesterday's news, it says that there's a reduction of 4,000 additional full-time jobs over the last 9 months in 2022. So now the T-Mobile company employs only 66,800 full-time employees. That is not jobs positive, folks. That means we're negative almost 10,000. It says here, the explanation, the total number of full-time equivalent employees in the U.S. operating segment decreased by 5.9% from September 30th, 2022 compared to December 31st, 2021, primarily due to international headcount reorganization to manage costs. Okay, so that's nonsense and BS. This is terrible. Okay, it says here, even as it promised to create jobs from the outset, Deutsche Telekom had prattled on about realizing $6 billion in synergies. That usually means job cuts. store consolidation, site decommissioning, and other measures. Those are all just cost savings, right? They call them synergies, folks. They're just trimming the fat. All this made the jobs creation promise sound contradictory. In 2018 presentation of the merger plans, it didn't help. Just 2 slides after it talked about store consolidation and site decommissioning, Deutsche Telekom insisted that the tie-up was about creating new jobs day one with investment to expand customer service, retail footprint, and 5G build-out. Oh, and I also might add that the only jobs that have been created are jobs in the Philippines for customer care. Let's just call a spade here, folks. Right? We're just here to call a spade a spade. If you call customer care for T-Mobile, how many times do you actually speak to an American employee? This has nothing to do with any type of discrimination for the fine folks that live in Philippines or India or whoever's doing customer care. But when you call T-Mobile customer care, if you've been a customer at T-Mobile for a long time, back in the day you were more likely to speak to an American representative. Today you are more likely to speak to a Filipino or Indian representative. Them's is the facts. So you traded American employees for foreign employees, and then you axed American employees and jobs. Them's is the facts, folks. It says here that T-Mobile has been opening roles. We have one of the best hiring years in our history. He's speaking about 2022. And you know what's crazy? Like here's the crazy part right down here. Last paragraph. For investors with an eye on the numbers, the good news is a more bullish assessment of what Deutsche Telekom thinks it can realize through synergies in 2022. U.S. merger costs have now passed their peak, it said today, having previously expected to unlock synergies between $5.4 and $5.6 billion. It is suddenly guiding for a range of $5.7 to $5.8 billion. T-Mobile staff may be feeling the impact. Okay, so let me get this straight. You laid off thousands of people. You send jobs, customer care jobs, to India and Philippines. And then you talk about job positive from day one. We're now like negative 10,000. And all you can say is we made a couple extra billion in synergies. And who gets the money? Are T-Mobile customers getting cheaper prices? No. Are T-Mobile customers getting breaks? No. These synergies go to investors. These synergies go to executives. They don't go to customers. They don't go to the American public, even though the American working public has been the one paying the cost. Now, we keep the same energy here on Sneed Mobile Tech. I call out AT&T every time they lay off hundreds and thousands. I slammed Verizon when they were throttling firefighters and laying people off and forcing them to take severance packages. This is one of those times where it is just not necessary to protect corporations. If you are a T-Mobile apologist, aka a thong, according to Moose, this is not the time. This is when you call a spade and you say, yes, these are evil corporations. They don't care about me or you. They simply want your money. No need to defend and be a thong. That would be wrong. Just admit and come to grasp the realization that they are a vicious, soulless, heartless corporation that doesn't care about people, the American worker. They just don't. I will give T-Mobile their due. They will fiercely compete for business. They will also fiercely axe jobs, just like AT&T would, just like Verizon would, just like Sprint did, because they operate at the needs, wants, and concerns of the investor, and not the worker, and not the general American public. Now, if you are an investor of the company, T-Mobile and Deutsche Telekom, you're very happy about this. You're thrilled because they're becoming more profitable and making more money. But when we read things like this, we can't help but notice more and more additional thousands of jobs are lost. It seems like each year there's been something. By the way, with all these new synergies, how about they fix the security problems with like hacked accounts, right? How about they build more tower sites in rural America? Just spend it on anything other than executives' pockets. Take these synergies, these extra billions, and just sink it into the network and make it better for customers. How about that for something? Just saying.